All right, let's talk about MicroStrategy. Ticker symbol MSTR. MicroStrategy. Michael Saylor's company. One of my favorite ways to trade Bitcoin on leverage. I just use margin and trade it like it's Bitcoin. So I want to start with some history. Let's take a look at before COVID, before the money printing, before Bitcoin was 60,000, 20,000, any of these crazy scenarios that later on add to the what many call overinflated price, reputation, value, etc. And let's talk about, some realities. So basically, MicroStrategy traded right here. It would, sometimes get up to this 225, 230 range, come get pushed back down. This is, 2015, 2016, 2017. This is a very zoomed out, aspect look on this chart. So at different times where these stocks were running up and the entire markets were running up, this thing would find peaks up here in this 225, 230 range. And then when we'd have problems and, you're even gapping down, selling off, all kinds of crazy things going on in markets, it would really try to find support in the $130 range. And it would push below it a little bit and it would find support around, 120 to 125, push back up to 150, kind of trading that 125 to 150 range. And at times, have drops down here just below the 100 mark. People would buy those pretty aggressively. And then a lot of times, like if you bought this dip down here to $79, you then ran all the way up to 227. This is all before all the craziness with the COVID lockdowns, the pandemic, the Bitcoin, and all the excessive purchases Michael Saylor has made since then of Bitcoin. So this is the value of the company prior to all these changes. Then, as I'm sure many of you know, if you're paying attention to the symbol at all that stuff becomes like old, tiny, little, tiny bits of nothing. Then all of a sudden, this thing goes and runs up. Let's just mark this right here. Runs up to $1,300. It actually broke 1,300. Went up into like 1,325, 1,320, stuff like that, and then sold off. Crashed all the way back down. Obviously, this took several weeks, months. Crashed back down to the 550 level, and then really tried to find a base and support and traded for a while with a low of about 550, and then it would have these crazy spikes up to like 800, 900, 600, like all these ranges, crazy. Sold back off with the zoom in on that actually a little bit time wise. So then when you started getting problems in 2021 and things started selling off, we came down, we touched in the $400 range, found support. That was the bottom at that time, came up, hit back into the fives, almost sixes, came back down, still had support in that 450 range, made a lower high, also made some higher highs, back off to the races, hitting 700, coming down once again, making a lower high. Now the bottom's 480 range. Same thing, keeps going up, making new highs, comes down, new lower high. So this was a stock that was basically starting to trade in the 400 to 800, 900 range, and when it gets crazy, it goes and blows off the top past that. So fast forward to how things went since then. We get obviously the sell off in risk assets, sell off in crypto. We have wars. We have black swan events happening. We have just more FUD than you can ever imagine. And you come up into and then actually this is another one of those stocks too that possibly bottomed earlier than everybody else in June. So when the May sell-off happened, which really hit risk assets, things like Bitcoin, crypto overall, stocks correlated, stocks that are like fintechs or extremely techish stocks, things like Tesla, a lot of these newer companies like telehealth companies, buy now, pay later companies, things of that nature. We sold off and found support in the 130 range, maybe in 135, something like that. And, to me, this is kind of your worst case scenario back then. This is Bitcoin's going to zero, markets have no direction, nobody knows what's going on. And then we still ended up back up here at this 270 range, which coincided, if you look left, with a previous candle that had also had a gap in between. So it was kind of on its, own little leg, showing some resistance and support lines between these two. And we topped right here in this 270, 350 range. And let's go ahead and mark that because we have other confluence with that, other points of contact. So as you move forward, we were already talking about this. We looked at that. Then you come over here, boom, hit it again. Right here, it's resistance. Right here, it's support 3 different times. Right here, it's resistance. Over here, it's support. And these are kind of in between, I won't lie. But then over here, resistance. As of right now, I'm still expecting us to at some point come back up and hit this for resistance. However, we're currently in a downtrend. We're currently in a downtrend on the markets, on risk assets, and just, the overall S&P and NASDAQ. Today had a pretty good sell-off. The S&P went all the way down to about the 3,500, 3,575 range. And the individual SPY ETF, looks like that thing came down on my other chart over here on this other screen to about 358, 357.50, something like that. So when that happened, and that's pretty good sell-off, and it brings everything else down with it, and Bitcoin's crashing. Bitcoin went down to lower 19,000s. Maybe even some people caught some wicks into the 18.9 range, and at some point, depends on where you're buying, selling, trading. Not everything's exact. So anyways, with all of that being said, we found support in this 215, 218, 220 type range, basically right around, let's just call it 225, 220, something like that. We found, some support in there, we thought. Then it started closing this candle below it, which it basically did. We closed at 220.65. Now, for me, I'm thinking we're probably getting some more bad news, some more pressure in the markets this week. And I'm believing we should come down here and really test these levels that were prior tested, at least along these lines. Come down, maybe get this 130. If nothing else, maybe get some of these 187s. But in the bigger scheme of things, I think that anywhere under the 300 mark is a good long-term buy. I think that anywhere under the 250 is a decent midterm buy. Anywhere under 225 could very seriously turn out to be a short-term swing trade. It takes very little action on Bitcoin and risk assets, and this thing takes off like a rocket, and it'll be back up here testing this 360 before you know it. So even buying it at 260, and today it's 220, even buying up by this red line where I'd be telling you to sell and possibly try to grab a swing short, you could still be looking at an easy $100 per share gain on less than $300 purchase. I mean, you're talking 30+% profit on a very short-term swing trade. However, if we get some more of this action downwards that I'm thinking, we've created a little bit of support right here in this 200 range. And that's kind of where I was going with my overall idea is I like to buy this currently in this last couple months anytime it's under 200. I mean, anytime you see the 198s and below, I just buy it. I buy it and I wait for the swing trade. And it has not let me down yet. And the moment Bitcoin or anything else starts to run, this thing moves fast. And for those of us who are actual Bitcoin believers and believe in the future of crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin, things of that nature, even if you just think it is temporary. Even if you think, sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Even if you just think that, this is going to be hype, like, it's the tulip phase or whatever. You don't think it's like the internet is going to continue to grow, which that's where it's really at. I mean, this is the future. But let's just say you're not a believer. You think this is all hype. Even that being said, the hype is not dead yet. The train is not, broken. It is not falling off the tracks. These things are still happening. They're just moving slow. We're in a downtrend. We're in a bear market. And even if you believe that Bitcoin's going to have one more little pop and then it goes to zero. Well, even a little pop for Bitcoin is, jumping up to 23, 25,000 minimum. This thing will shoot right up into the 360, 450 range so fast. And then, even if you were the most pessimistic person on Bitcoin, to not think open-minded to just the manipulation of the world and the powers that be and how much money is wrapped up in these things already with institutions and people that are just powerful, people that have real money, people that buy and sell presidents and governors, people that really make world change and world markets move. To not think that they're going to at least run this up one more time, run Bitcoin up one more time before they crash it and call it zero. If that's how you feel, oh, Bitcoin's got one more run, then that's it, it goes zero, it's worthless. To not think that that number is not 30,000 plus or 28 to 32,000 minimum, 28 to 32,000 minimum, in my opinion, would be kind of crazy. And even if you were the most pessimistic person, to not believe that at least one more run to 23 to 25 is going to happen, to me is just absurd. So for me, buying this even right here, anywhere under this 350, 360 range is golden. And when you get below this 275, this is legitimately a golden area to buy this entire thing. Should you ever see this break into this next lower zone, I would sell everything to buy at that point personally, because you could literally end up with a 10 to 20x off of a legitimate, stock that's registered on the Nasdaq, part of the S&P, and you can easily, even with something like Robinhood, be buying it on margin and doubling your exposure. I mean, you could be buying this, and I typically don't encourage any leverage, and definitely degen traders have to be careful trading on 10 and 100x leverage. That's a whole nother story. But trading actual stocks on 1x leverage with even a little bit of common sense shouldn't really be that big of a deal. Not to say that it's not still dangerous and people shouldn't pay attention, but with a world that's getting more and more comfortable trading on 10, 20, 50, 125x, 1-to-1 X margin in the stock market is becoming quite typical to just use as if it's your regular money and deal with the issues as they come if you're getting margin called. I mean, obviously, be safe, be careful. It's not to say you couldn't get a serious margin call. You can't come up with money in time and you liquidate, you lose your entire position. But for people comparing the ideas of how they want to trade, Bitcoin and crypto, and they're looking for some high risk, high reward, for those kind of people, rather than jump over to some exchange where you can trade at 10x to 125x leverage when you're not much of a trader, or you don't have time to monitor your positions or pay attention to what's going on, I would say your safest and best bet when feeling that way, you want some risk, you want some reward, you want to increase these things, you buy these stocks. You buy stocks like Riot, Mara. You buy things like, even Roblox. But most importantly, you buy MicroStrategy. You buy MSTR. You buy this as if it's your Bitcoin. And because you can use leverage on it, and it's easier than buying GBTC, which also Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. You should be buying that as well. It's a 30+% discount right now. If Bitcoin's at 18,000, it's like you're buying a whole Bitcoin at GBTC for, something in the 11 to 13,000 range off the top of my head. So these are plays people should pay attention to if they want exposure to crypto, they want exposure to Bitcoin, but they're not comfortable with crypto exchanges. They're not comfortable buying digital assets. A lot of people aren't really comfortable buying stocks or trading stocks. And, things like Robinhood have made that more common. So if you're one of those people, then just put in the work to at least obtain a Robinhood account and buy and trade even without margin. Just buy it on spot, buy it, 1-to-1 shares, buy and trade MSTR as if it's your Bitcoin. And I, once again, I mean, it's not financial advice. This is all for educational purposes. But in my personal educational opinion, I believe that you could find yourself learning a lot about making a lot of money buying MSTR in these ranges. That's where I'll leave that. You guys have a good one. This might be my last video for the day.